Watershed District Workshop for the month of October to order. Do you need me to call? I don't believe so anymore. Attendance, correct? Great. And I guess at this point, I will turn this over to Terry, and then he can determine how we're working on things.
President Patterson, managers, we have really want to just kind of go through some governance manual revisions tonight, get that up to speed. And then the planning process, just the timeline, just a broad overview of the benchmarks and milestones we need to make. I know Manager Crafton would like to take a few minutes because her and I were talking, and I think it's important for us to reset as a board. I mean, our last meeting, we didn't even remember that we could just say aye for vote. So it's been a long time, a lot of changes, and I think Manager Crafton would just like to kind of talk about the history and how we got to here and what our relationships with cities are like and why we're doing some of the things we do so that we can move forward together.
All right, I'll start. So the Isaac Walton, this league is important in a couple of respects for me. And I have this one that shows kind of the structure. So that's where I'm going to kind of go first. But the Isaac Walton League was started in 1922 about the people that cared about, like the river was being treated as a sewer. But we had some really good leadership, and one of those leaders within the Minnesota division with our state of Minnesota was Ray Hake. And so he wrote, and Council Smith can certainly fill in any gaps later, but he wrote the Watershed Act. And so we wouldn't probably be here if we didn't have that act that allowed citizens to petition to form watershed districts. There's one other person within the Isaac Walton League that is dear to me, and that's Greg Thompson. So he's played a piece in this. But we've got the counties that do appointments, so we know about that. And then a lot of the cities, so we've got decision makers there, plans. And those water resource people are really important members of the TAC. There are others, but they're the bulk of what's on the TAC. And then, of course, the district, those of us that are part of that. And then that we're part of MAUD, or now Minnesota Watersheds. We have a lobbyist. David's been an integral part of the strategic planning. He's an officer on the board. And so we got that really good relationship. In the Metro MAUD, and I'd encourage managers to attend that at some point, but a lot of the issues come up, and the state agency people attend that. So you've got DNR, you've got PCA, you've got Bowser, you've got Department of Health. So when issues come up like about wells and monitoring and all of that, there's a place to raise our questions. So that's kind of the infrastructure, but we're under Bowser, as you probably know, but they review our 10-year plan, any boundary changes, and we've done a few of those. And then we have an assigned board conservationist who probably works with Terry more than any of us, but because I'm on the Bowser board, I get to talk to that person occasionally. But the reason I wanted to bring this up is the importance of relationships, both internal and external, for us to be an effective watershed district. So, the part that the Isaac Walton League with Greg Thompson was we have a chapter in Bloomington, and when Greg joined the chapter, came out for a shoreline restoration, and joined the chapter, we started bugging the city. Well, particularly Greg. Well, you could put green gardens here, or you could be doing better water smart landscaping, or you could, how about some native plants or whatever? And so he's taught water smart landscaping classes for a long time. Leslie Stobring used to have him do them at Eden Prairie at the community education programs. But the day that I stepped on the bus on August of 2009, I was greeted by Michael Casanova, and he said, well, we do things a little differently here in this watershed district. And so I said, okay, I need to learn about that. But I had been hearing for a long time that Bowser was really concerned about how the watershed district was being run and some of the things that were happening. And so at some point, I guess I wanted to share some of that. I could do it right now, but we kind of mirrored 9 Mile Creek. We had our administrator, well, we had an administrator legal coordinator person that was kind of in charge, and then we had bar engineering. But something happened at 9 Mile Creek, and our coordinator got really upset and ended up firing bar, or letting bar go, and kind of took things in a different direction than I think we were expected to go in. And at that point, the focus a lot when I got on was on internal control with carp removal. We all know how important that is because it stirs everything up and it's crazy. I was concerned because we weren't doing enough external loading. Look, but anyway, so there was that kind of dysfunctionality going on because all of a sudden we had lost the people that had been the experts, that had walked the reaches, that knew the history, that done the UAAs. And it was almost like the citizens, like especially in the lake associations, were kind of like in the driver's seat, so to speak. So we had that kind of a relationship going on. It didn't seem real effective to me. So it's those relationships, and at the same time they had, and Terry can talk about that too at some point, but there was hostility between the district and the cities. I mean, we'd given up our regulatory authority, we turned back WACA authority. So those were some of the tools we had to be effective as a watershed district. And a lot of that came from the angst, I guess, of what was going on with the leadership at that time. But it was really problematic. And the county commissioners were really unhappy with us because we weren't working with the cities. And there were just all these relationships that got kind of tangled up in that. So at some point I just started raising questions because I was like, I didn't know what was going on. You know, it's like, I talked to Bob Obermeyer and Luthold, and they gave me some information on kind of what had been. And I used I spent a lot of time with the board conservationist, who was Brad Wozny at that time, as well as Steve Woods had been an engineer. He was like executive director at Bowser. So they helped me sort through things that didn't make sense. But anyway, I just kept asking questions. And finally, there were a couple other managers that joined me in deciding that things weren't going well. And so we terminated the relationship with the coordinator and brought, it was a while before we terminated the engineers. It was another year, I think. But but the two other managers that were instrumental in this were Ken Wenzel and Perry Forster. And Perry brought his marketing skills to the table with Maud and helped, because there was also a horrible relationship between the managers and officers at the Minnesota watersheds, Maud, and administrators. There was such disrespect. I was like, you gotta be kidding. But he surveyed both groups and brought information to the table, and that was really helpful. But at that point, and so anyway, and they both decided, you know, we needed a change at the watershed district level. So we had that going on. So in 2012, we hired Claire. They were just so impressed because she was winning all these awards at the annual meeting for different programs and things that she had put in place. So we brought Claire on. Perry got terminated because some of the commissioners weren't happy with his relationship with the city. So, I mean, there's all this stuff going on all the time, and you're trying to be an effective watershed district, right? But we brought on staff, and at the second year, we got Josh and Michelle, and that's when we really started turning the corner. And the one constant that's been effective through the whole time, the rest of my time on the board, has been the staff and the expertise that you brought and the good work. Michelle Jordan was just incredible with the volunteers and that whole piece, and working with the CAC, you both know because you were there. And so we started kind of turning around, but so I guess then we had some issues. So we started working on our 10-year plan. Wasney had been really critical of the one that had been developed before, as Bowser. I mean, they were just not happy with us. So we started down the path of the next 10-year plan, and we got that in place, got started. But 2014, we took back rules. We started doing rules. We took the,
2014, we developed them.
right. And then we had taken the H&H model, the hydrology and hydraulic model that CH2M Hill had started, and Bowser and Bars enhanced that, kind of ground truthed it. So we started developing the tools, and we were bringing the expertise together to do things. The next thing that was kind of dysfunctional for me was that in 2014, there was an opening on the Bowser board, and so Jesky suggested I apply, and the mod board put my name up, so I got appointed to that. So I started asking questions there, but we finished the 10-year plan, and it was an amazing process. Claire was so inclusive, and it was, I mean, PCA, we just thought it was brilliant. I mean, people just thought it was an amazing plan, but we had the same year, we had the summer tour, and things really got ugly. Claire was part of the group of administrators that were really unhappy with how Maud was not acting as a team, bringing us together as a team. And I mean, that there was a whole lot of dissension. And so she caused some issues with she was, okay, so Dick Ward by that time was on the board, and well, yeah, Dorothy was there. But anyway, she had caused some problems, and she was really insulting to some of the staff at Maud. And so she was asked to apologize, and she refused. So the personnel committee was trying to work with her, trying to get a coach, trying to get an improvement plan and process. But that relationship broke down. She just wasn't having it. So I mean, I don't mean to get personal, but it's about all these relationships, internal and external. And if we're not all on the same page and going in the same direction, we're not as effective as it could have been. So anyway, she resigned. We got Terry in, and Terry's expertise with the cities. So I feel like we've been bringing a team together, but over the course of my time on this thing, it's been pretty dang dysfunctional. And so for me, what we're doing, and I'm so excited about where staff's taking us in terms of a process to move forward. I think we absolutely have to have this. But I just wanted to share some of those things because we got to all be on the same page. And that's where things haven't been on the same page over this time period. So I don't know, Josh may want to share some of his insights. I don't know, but because when you got on, I don't know what you perceived, but you've been a shining star for us and Michelle too, and at our beginning, it got us going. So we brought all the carp stuff in-house because of Josh. So I think we're on a good path to be effective, but looking forward to learning more about all of the managers, maybe doing a strength finder so we can learn about the strengths and weaknesses we all bring, and just kind of start fresh and let's all get on the same page. But anyway, I just wanted to share some of the history. I didn't know if all of you knew kind of where we'd been and where we hadn't been, but anyway. So anyway, one of the things that I wanted to show was this picture here. So this is an EHAB meeting. And it just, to me, so we've got Jack Distel here. He's a Bloomington Public Works guy. We've got Zach. Paul Erdman was the caretaker at my chapter. He was representing Bowser. We got Lori Hack and Joe Seidel from Chanhassen. Dave Hansen's was there from Bloomington. And next to him, well, behind Jack Distel is Michelle. Was it Lincoln or Williams?
Michelle Lincoln. Correct.
Yeah. She's on the planning, but staff did amazing job of bringing all these different groups together to really start approaching where we're going to go. So I feel like we've really come a long way because the cities are now appreciating some of the work we're doing and the work with the modeling. And anyway, so I'll shut up, but I just thought it was important to say.
Thanks, Jill. Yeah, I mean, some of the institutional knowledge, so it really in a synopsis. Watershed District was founded. Any projects that were done by a petition from the city. The cities would petition the district, then the district would decide to levy for that project. Then BAR was terminated. New administration came in. They suspended their rules and they partnered with U of M, which gave us some great stuff, but all they did was studies. There were no more projects. The cities themselves, at the time I was at Chanhassen, chose not to come anymore to any of the TAC meetings or board meetings, just because it was not productive. It was a completely adversarial relationship. And so that is really what I've been trying to do these last 4 years, is to build those relationships back in the city, because we cannot accomplish anything without those partnerships. So I think it is important to remember that it's very easy for it all to fall apart. It just takes one or two people that don't want to move the same way. So
Because even the TAC meetings were run top down. They weren't bottom up like they should have been. And I even had to check with my guys in Bloomington to say, is this really what happened? And they'd say, no, we didn't agree to this. So yeah.
So we're really, we're at a point now where we can reset, put our new nadir down, and all of us come to a consensus about where we want to go. So before I get into the governance, tonight we had talked a while back about talking about EHAP tonight, but after meeting with some other administrators who've been through this process and somewhat difficult, and this, I'm going to break up for just a second. This is our board conservationist from the Board of Water and Soil Resources.
I am so sorry that I am late. Traffic from St. Paul was much worse than I expected it to be.
Jennifer Duluth?
Dulam. But that sounds way fancier.
It does, it
Thank
really
you.
does.
Yeah.
You're free to sit up here and join us if you'd like.
Join us.
Or sit in the audience. So, speaking of relationships, this is one of those that's really important. When Jennifer took over for Steve Christopher, she reached out to me within the week and didn't buy me lunch, but did ask me.
I don't think that's allowed.
I think you offered it, but I didn't accept it. So, yeah, we really need to be working with our partners, but I'm looking at resetting in the nadir, all of us deciding what we want to do. So we were going to talk about EHAP, but after meeting with some other administrators who've gone through a similar process, it really became clear that we need to, as a body, as a group, decide what our mission, vision, and values are. And from there, define our goals. And then from there, start doing our planning process. So that's the reason I'm not going forward with the EHAP tonight, because I would like to get those other things. So October 17th, we'll be getting together. At that point, we're going to go over just some of the basic governance, Robert's rules, and start talking about how do we want to function as a board? Do we want, how rigid would we like to be following Robert's rules of orders? How, to start our general protocol, how we're going to operate. The next retreat then will be reviewing our existing visions and mission and goals, and where were our strengths and where were our weaknesses and what are the gaps that we need to fill in. And then the last one, we will actually develop as a group, mission, vision, values. And then from there, we can look at our goals of what we want to do. So that will all be coming up over the next, I'd like to have it finished by the end of November, but we'll see what the weather does to President Pedersen's schedule. If we can get her here. I know Manager Nelson has obligations too that take her away from time to time. We'll get you here. So beyond that, with that, I will start in on would you like to say anything at all to this group? No?
Well, thanks for having me. I kind of invited myself, so.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, so I've been with the Board of Water and Soil Resources for a whopping 6 months. Trying to go to all of the board meetings and introduce myself, say hi. I have a background in environmental science I spent most of my time in city government doing municipal stormwater permitting and inspections with a side of education and outreach. And I was also a city forester. So that's where I'm coming from. I'm a really bad city forester. Don't ask me any questions. I'll probably give you bad information. But really enjoying my time so far at Bowser, learning a lot. State statute is tricky, but really excited to be here and help through permitting programs, helping with, plan updates, grants, whatever is, you guys need. So Terry and I are in touch whenever he needs anything. So I'm here for whatever you guys.
She says she's gonna give us all the grants we applied for, so that's.
Other grants, even though I don't have anything.
Excuses.
Yeah, so,
Thank you for coming. All right. With that, I am going to go into
Welcome to our meeting, by the way.
governance quick. I'm gonna defer to Lewis from time to time. Those of you who have been here will remember, what was it? It was February 11th, 2022 that Manager Ziegler, myself, and Manager Cook and Mr. Smith first sat down and started talking about the governance manual. We made a lot of progress in it through fits and starts, but I think we are at a point where we would like to go through just the final edits of it, get some clarifications from the managers at the November meeting, then ask the managers, go ahead and authorize us noticing it, comment on it for adoption at the December meeting. So that's the plan. So I'm just gonna, I violated every rule of PowerPoint presentation. It is all words. Sorry. But I couldn't come up with a way to use pretty pictures and make it work. So we'll see how it goes.
You needed Liz.
Well, I have a PowerPoint that Liz made for me way back when, and I then just take that PowerPoint and change the slides out every time I want to do something with it. All right, where'd it go? Here we go. All right, so I'm just kind of going to go through some of the initial parts of it, change we made. We've already gone through a lot of this, but I want to get some feedback on it. So currently, right now it says each June, the administrator shall prepare a budget for the following year to be brought to the July meeting. Well, that is what I always hope to do. It's not always possible. Plus, sometimes I'm looking at April numbers to try and bring a budget together. We need to have it August. So I would like it to somehow, each shall prepare a budget for the following year with the intent to present at the July meeting, but in no case shall be presented later than August. Something that allows that flexibility.
Makes more sense.
Everybody says,
Yeah, why not?
Yeah,
I
makes
mean, we
sense.
still meet our deadline when we have to have our budget approved. So
It's still my intent. I would like to bring it to you earlier rather than later, so we have more time to react. The other part is, one, we don't have appendices, so that, Mr. Smith, isn't that what we were gonna?
Bonnie has a comment.
I do have a question. If it's
Yeah.
presented at August, is there a chance for any feedback loop in there? That's the only concern if there's not something.
Yes, because we have September 15th that has to be presented. So we'll have
Okay.
the September meeting
Okay.
at which changes can be made to it. And again, I will almost always have something for you to react to earlier than that, but it'll be very draft at that point.
We could have a workshop or something, right? If we had a lot of questions or.
Yeah.
Or something, we could.
If there are a lot, but I think in the past, we haven't really had as many to really need that. I think
I
it's
don't
just gonna
think we need
depend
it,
on, yeah, it just
But if
depends
there
on
was
what's gonna
something
happen.
that was a concern,
Right, that was just,
And,
Checking.
obviously use the audit and finance committee meeting and they would be involved earlier in the process. So as it brings in. The second one is the appendices. When we don't have appendices, they will be embedded in it. But right now, the audit and finance committee has been spending a lot of time talking about the form of the treasurer's report and what they want it to be. So we don't necessarily even have a form that's there. I'm thinking something more along the lines consistent with statute and agreed upon by the board. We're looking at trying to get a cash flow statement so we can have our investment policies based upon cash flow. So those are my thoughts on this section. I do have the page that it's in. If you have the whole packet, it's on page 8, their scheduled activities.
So, Mr. CPA,
Yes.
have you kind of thought about the form that we're getting things? And do
Yes.
you agree with the changes he's suggesting?
With the financial statement
Yes.
changes, we're not really there yet, are we? I mean, we have a number of things that are still, I don't think we've ever formally, either within the committee or within the board, said this is what we want, this is the way we want to do it and why. I think we still have some things hanging out on the side, in my opinion.
and as a person that does some of the oversight, there's a section of that summary one that I can't figure out. I have to go through, and I know the totals are match the district-wide part, but I have no clue how they're getting there, what they're pulling together. And so like this last report, there were some things that weren't quite lined up in the right place. And so if I don't, so I need that other internal report in order to know exactly how things got allocated in the right place in order to know that they're rolling up in the summary one. So anyway, but for more, the cash flow is the thing that we really need.
So cash flow, and again, I think it seems to me it's more important than a lot of other components in the statement because we have projects that go, they don't match up with the month, they don't match up with a calendar year, they don't even necessarily match up with any other year. They're kind of scattered across a 10-year spectrum. So you have this package of projects that are going like this over time. And you've got this 12-month window you're looking at for financial statements and budgeting. So I think and then overlaid over that is governmental accounting. And so there's miscommunication, I think, at best over many aspects of that. And then we're all trying to relate it kind of to our personal lives in terms of how we manage budgets and our checkbook and everything. So I think one of the other things, and I think Terry, you alluded to it at the beginning, and Jill did also, in terms of aligning our goals and looking at our skills and everything, I don't even necessarily think it provides the information the way we have it right now, because it's been kind of a hodgepodge of added things, parts taken out. And so I think from my perspective, it's almost a distraction rather than something that's helping us oversee. And then the other component of that is, I think we need to have a really good definition of what the board does and what they need. And again, I don't necessarily think that lines up. And also what the role of the board managers are. Should we be reviewing, Terry's petty cash? And I know you don't have a petty cash fund, but we shouldn't necessarily be monitoring, at that level, I think. So anyway, we're not there yet. We've got bits and pieces.
So yeah, I guess then that kind of gets me to my point. We don't have necessarily a form to say, this is it, this is what's going to be ours. So I would rather have it be something that's consistent with statute, that the board agrees this is the form we're gonna use. And if different data needs to be in that or taken out of it, then we have that ability to do that.
Add one more comment. I've looked at a number of other watershed districts in terms of what they report, and there is no consistent report that anybody does. And they go from more detail to much less detail. And again, we can't necessarily pattern ours against any other district. We have to follow what Terry is saying. Meet statute and meet our needs.
I'd like to put in please could we. I love Scott's sort of summary of where all the money is going for every project. And I kind of know, oh, look, this one's at 25, this one's at 50%. It would be nice to have something easy like that to be able to look at when we're looking at those projects in terms of the money of it, just so that it's easy to see where we are in the process. So I'm putting that in as a
I
perhaps,
think that'd
please.
be helpful,
Yeah.
because that's gonna align with the cash flow.
And the other thing is, if you could have some sort of easily looked at same sort of a template or something for the total budget. So here we are in the month of October, and totally here's where we are in relationship to the entire year. And are we at 80%? And that sort of thing, just so that you can clearly see it quickly. And I don't have to look down at the very bottom and say, okay, well, on this line item, we're at, and I don't really know if I need to have all the specific line items. I need kind of a summary as how we doing overall. I don't need to know your petty cash, and I don't need to know if there's a receipt for everything that went through. I mean, what am I going to do? Call you up and say, you didn't bring your holiday gas receipt in? I mean,
And to Manager Bell's point, if you look at some watershed districts, it's a very, very simple budget.
Mhm,
Capital and expenditure,
mhm.
administrative and expenditure. That's really it. So want to get to where you're all comfortable. You have the information you need. Jill's going to need a different, or Manager Craftman, excuse me, is going to need a different form for her work. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's what the managers are going to see. Okay, so we're okay with doing
Yes.
something like that.
Because if we just use the summary lines, that would be enough.
Right, exactly. Because that sounds like that's what a lot of them want. Okay, so each November, the board shall direct the solicitation of candidates. Does the board need to direct the
No,
solicitation?
why
We
can't you
know
just
every year
say-
we're gonna want to have that. In fact, and we typically go out in October, so there's enough time to get those so that you can make a decision. Hopefully at the December meeting is what I want to be, so in January, then they could start on the CAC.
Does everybody agree with that? Yes? Okay,
So
everybody
we're
agrees
just
with
saying
that.
that we should.
Yeah.
Should have the solicitation process.
It's, you are in charge of the process and bring us the candidates.
This one is just my own personal preference, but we seem to have confusion with our January meeting a lot. Seems it might be easier to say in December, we'll set our calendar for the next year.
And I think all of us agree, we are better off knowing the schedule of things, just so all of us can work around what the schedule is going to be. I think that's,
And it also really helps with, so if we don't have a calendar for meetings, we can't really tell applicants, here's when you need it by in order to make this meeting. So the sooner we can get that schedule set, the better off they are.
I think it would be helpful if you had a backup date every month for things that may come up if you need to have another meeting, and that way people can put it on their calendar if it happens. If we don't need it, it's a non-event. But if you do need it, then you don't have to do this, okay, go to meeting, is everybody available on this day or this day, and then try to figure it all out, which takes more staff time. So just set something and say, if we need it, it'll be this day and we'll let you know.
We can certainly do
So
that.
like the first and third Wednesday.
That's
so-
what I was
Something like
saying,
that.
yeah.
Exactly.
This is something just for you to be thinking about. There's no changes here. It's really for our next meeting on the 17th, to really be thinking, and we've talked about some of the things too, treasurer's report, what do we need to see? What is it you as managers want to have provided to you? How do you want to function as a body to go work? So there's no change there, just something for you to think about.
Wait, can you go back, please?
Yeah.
So doesn't when you say in accordance with Robert's Rules of Order, maybe as amended by the board, or, I mean, there's a lot of room for us within Robert's Rules of Order, within our policy to choose how we want to run the meetings. So is that more prescriptive than we need?
And that's the question I guess I have for the board. I think by saying you'll follow Robert's Rules of Order, you're not, I don't think you're necessarily saying to the letter. It's even written elsewhere in the manual that a manager can suspend Robert's rules to have discussion, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's really less of a governance manual thing and more of as we start working together as a body, deciding how is it we want to function.
I think this is more like we need to talk about what do we really want to do? I mean, do I have to say, okay, everybody, now we're going to call order and everybody's going to say, all right, you know what I'm saying? We just have to agree on how we're going to do it. And maybe we have a reset when there's a change in who's running the meeting or there's a big change in who's on the board, but at least we can agree and maybe spend more time on things that are more productive rather than on procedure and order.
I know
My
Mr.
feeling.
Smith really values his time as parliamentarian, so I want to take that away from him. All right. So the change was made to have a copy of all materials which are to be presented or discussed. We frequently have applicants that are coming in within that 3-day window, so all available materials, and Mr. Smith can correct me if I am wrong, but the law says has to be distributed and available at the meeting. So it wouldn't be in violation of law to say all available materials are presented. It happens all the time, or we need to update something, or one of the managers catches an error in it, we have to pull it down and put it back up again. So
Well, to be clear, the legal requirement is that any materials that the board is discussing at the meeting have to be available to the public
At the meeting,
at the meeting.
which can be as they walk in the door.
Correct.
So that's what we
that packet right there.
do at Bowser. They just have a table, the agenda and all the materials there.
It's beneficial to share materials before the meeting to both the board and the public as you can.
And I guess on that same token, there are materials we have well before that Friday that we could certainly distribute. I just don't for that confusion of having it be piecemeal coming to you. But if managers would like me to do that, to send it to you as it's available, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, no.
All right, that's what
Well, it could be that you put it on the shared drive. That would be very helpful for those of us who might want to look at something sooner. If you have it, you could put it up there. We could find it.
Or if it's a longer document.
Mhm.
Longer document that's available to have it out there before,
Like the EHAP.
like the EAP or anything that has any length to it.
And a lot of those documents are located elsewhere on the website as well, so it
Right.
might be beneficial just to say, go look here for that. But yeah, the one issue with putting it on the website, we don't always have a full agenda set yet. And we link it to an agenda. So if the full agenda isn't there, but that might not matter either if we add agenda items.
I was more thinking of the internal site for early, if you have something available earlier versus having it at 5 PM. I am a little concerned about things that come later or stuff that has updates or changes, especially with those updates not called out. So I don't know where in this document to look for what's been changed. I find that problematic.
It's gonna happen.
I hear that, but it's like a marked up copy or some way that we know that what we're looking at, that I can focus my review so that I've looked at it.
We'll try. It ends up being a lot of work to have a number of different, but we
Which
can,
version you're in.
yeah.
I mean, I like knowing that when Friday comes, I'm gonna go on
Mhm.
Friday night and I'm gonna print off the agenda. And I'm gonna be able to tell on how the links are colored or not,
Yeah.
what's active. And then I just have to come back and pick up the other things as they go live.
So, yeah,
The other thing I would throw out is that I'm still amazed at the volume of detail of information that's out there. And there's people that are connecting, all different kinds of people are connected to all these things. So to say that you're going to have the whole world organized by this point of everything you're going to cover at that meeting is near impossible. So it seems to me we should have a protocol in place that looks at we're complying with the law, we're using our best efforts to get it to everybody by a certain point. And when changes come up, we deal with it as we have to.
so we did try implementing this year, that all materials must be provided 10 days before the meeting. It worked better, but we still had a lot of, especially cities that are scrambling to get a project. I got a contractor lined up. We need to get this on the agenda. We realize that it's gonna cost them tens of thousands of dollars to not have their contractor start, so we'll move those forward.
I am one of those people where I'm pretty busy. And so when I sit down, I like to kind of like read all of it. And I like to try to do it over the weekend because if I'm working during the week, it could be I'll fall asleep on Monday night at 9 o'clock while I'm trying to read it. So I understand that you're not going to have everything. I get that. And you do send emails out and you say, okay, now this is posted and here's this little item. And I try, if I'm out somewhere, okay, I'm sitting down for lunch, I can now read through this kind of quick. I'll do the best I can. As long as you do your best, that's really, I think, all we can expect. I mean, it's never going to be perfect. The idea that we have all of the materials and they're all posted and all available the Friday before the meeting is just not, I don't think it's possible to do that.
It's hard.
Just do your best.
Yeah, just do your best. That's all you can do.
I think the biggest thing is actually presentations. So those are things I really don't, Joe actually just sent me his presentation while we were talking,
Yeah.
so. Things like that, so, all right.
I just to say that the presentations, I would say, are less important to have ahead of time, but it's the engineer report, it's a staff report, it's those that you can maybe want to think about or get some input or have a chance to talk about that are important to have.
Those are usually all there by Friday.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're almost always all there by Friday. Occasionally we'll have where I need to draft a resolution and that resolution isn't up, but the materials will be up or.
So another question, do we have to have resolutions for every single thing? Is that
That's
on there?
coming up. That's another slide here. All right.
Recommended,
Yeah, that seems.
so you know what you're voting on.
That's the same slide. That's just done again. Okay. This is a pretty simple one. We don't have dpco@rpbcwd.org. We could do that, but it would be logging in and out and going to another account. We do have, however, an online submittal form, email address, so like to use that. And on it, on that page, it says you can download this form and email it to Terry Jeffrey at rpbcwd.com. So That's all. I'd just like to change that language.
Fine. Anybody have any
can.
problem with that?
Set up another.
I think it's fine as long as it's clear and why.
Okay, this one is as much, Louis, I'm gonna really put you on the spot here, but I'm hoping you can help out. It is actually far more onerous to have inspection of documents than it is to simply provide them electronically. Reason being, most of our stuff is electronic right now. So we needed to set up another workstation that is not connected to the server, which we don't have. Everybody has their own computer. If we do have it, then we need to manually transfer the data to a thumb drive and transfer it to that, have it all set up. A lot easier to just email documents. So that's typically what I tend to do, or if they're okay with it, use a SharePoint site. This is one of those, I know it's state law, but it's so archaic because it's more costly to do that. Is there any way to charge for terabyte of storage or anything like that and go about it that way rather than per page?
No.
Okay.
Stupid law.
Okay, could we not say that initially we would like to be able to have this available digitally to you and you can inspect it with a copy we'll send you or share with you. And if you want, you can come and inspect, because at least you're saying, here's our first method of this is a deal where as all of us age and the younger people take over more, I think this thing's gonna go away.
Just gonna put
This
it,
is just a matter of time before that's gonna be gone.
I have a thought perhaps in the form for the data practices for people who would prefer not to invoke the Data Practices Act is that if you don't do it through this, I can email you the documents. You know what I'm getting at?
most will.
To be clear, there's no restriction on the district providing documents
Correct.
electronically.
Right.
Correct.
The question is how the district recovers costs.
Yep.
It has a right to recover costs for these terms,
Correct.
but you're by statute not allowed to charge for someone, and anyone has the right to request to come to the district and inspect documents
Correct.
at no charge.
Correct.
So that's just the way the statute.
It is.
So it really is. It's all about recouping staff time costs, but there isn't a way under this.
And so we can't say it's gonna take our staff member a half an hour to collect all this stuff and get it together for you. We can't charge them staff time for actually putting all that data request information together.
Unless they're asking for copies and it's more than.
Okay, so I predict this is gonna end up getting changed. This is just a matter of, we just gotta hang in there and try to get Bowser and Mo figure out how to do this differently. It's the same as the newspaper thing, our postings on a
Right,
newspaper.
it
It's the
is.
same,
A relic.
right?
Is it something we should be asking Minnesota watersheds? To push?
I'm in
Seems like
favor of
every
that.
Watershed would, and for that matter, every government organization has this problem, right?
Is that a resolution in the making?
Yes.
Well, just the growth.
Yeah. Miss this one. But I think, yeah, it is something to be considering for next year.
I think that's a fabulous idea. And see, Jennifer's writing it down.
I don't know if I can do anything about
You got it, Paul.
it. I got, yeah, my dad was 6 months.
Thank you.
This one is just clean up language. His actual title
Right,
in there, so 63 through 64.
right.
Okay, we have the resolution delegating authority. We need to update another resolution. So the Audit and Finance Committee and Governance Committee met jointly August 22nd, I think. And these were the things that came out of it. So the spending authority resolution was brought to the board last month. Need to update for the ACH authorization under resolution. Mr. Monahan and myself have compiled this list of vendors that we would like to be able to pay regularly via ACH. They're all utilities, rent, or things related to insurance costs.
Fine with me. Is that okay with everybody else?
The Excel bills come in all at the same time.
I'm sorry?
Do the Excel bills come in all at the same time? Okay. Because I know we have different things depending on what we're monitoring.
Yeah.
Whether
I think you all need to put in there that you have the right to change who's on this list with approval of the board or something like that, just so that you aren't having to come back to, well, we're not using this anymore. We're now using, you know what I'm saying? Just trying to make it easier for you.
We can always update the resolution and just
Okay.
reference the previous resolution. So we'll prepare that for the November meeting, and by we, I mean, thank you, Mr. Smith. I appreciate you doing that. And then should I work with the Audit and Finance Committee to come up with, so the credit card is still at the $5,000. That's still back there. And I can't write a check and I don't want to write a check. So that will need to somehow be changed to align with resolution. I think we can do that with language in the governance that just references those other parts. Could we not? And then as far as the investment depository policy, when we reviewed that, and managers Duvel, Ziegler, and Kraft, and if you have any other recollection from that meeting, please feel free to interject. But that wanted to make some changes to further clarify the separation of duties, or who can and cannot authorize transfer funds. But in general, in reviewing the investment depository policies, they were consistent with statute or with state law. So there weren't any major changes other than really kind of a protocol of, you know, if I transfer money into an investment fund, do I call the treasurer? Do I call the president? Does the audit and finance committee meet? So that's really the one piece that's kind of missing in there. Or if I just do it and say, hey, guys, I did it. So I think right now it says the administrator
to that?
and treasurer.
Pardon?
Right now it says the administrator and treasurer. I don't know. And or, those always confuse me in legal terms, Mr. Smith.
And means both of us.
Does that mean we both have to do it, or either of us could do it?
And
That's
it's
the or.
worded two different ways based on action, so it applies in the main wording. Make it consistent.
Okay.
And it's just a question of whether the board wants it to be both
I
or.
think it should be both. So it's like a subset of the board, in essence, with the way the committee structure is set up.
So don't they normally recommend that to the board and then the board approves it too, or no?
No, so how it's set up is we would get, what we'd like it to be is then we'd get the cash flow statement, so we would know what we have for balances. And then the treasurer and I would say, okay, for the next 6 months, there's $870,000 sitting here that we do not need to allocate to any of our costs. Then we would put into a 6-month term vehicle or something of that nature.
Report to the board.
Then report to the board that is what, yeah.
I think that's fine.
I kind of like input from Tom too at the same time. I just feel like that's,
I think it has to be consistent with our other financial statement requirements. So right now we go through a fairly rigorous process. It doesn't feel like it's all connected in the right way yet. But this has to be done consistently with that. So just like you don't currently sign checks, and that's set up as one of the most fundamental things in separation of duties in all organizations. So everything should follow that really broad format. And right now it's kind of nebulous. And I think having the confer with the treasurer implies that, you know, you're dealing with a subset of the board on something that needs to have some immediate, it has a time constraint around whatever you're doing. It doesn't coincide with the board meeting, or it doesn't naturally flow that way. So that it should be done that way. But all the duties there should be consistent with the way we handle all other monies, both inflows and outflows. It's really as simple as that. And I think it's only been circumstantial that we've been forced to look at some of the things that have happened over recent past to trigger reviewing it. Anyway, that's my opinion. And I think one of the things that's been missing is the cash flow statement. I think it's been missing fundamentally from all our reviews of how we're dealing with our money as a watershed. And we can't make decisions without knowing the timing of when the city payments come in, the way the projects are overlaid our budget. So right now it's basically, you know, how do you think? You know, how are we doing with our funds today, Terry? Oh, we're pretty good. Well, let's do this. You know, this way we have a way to document it. We have a way to actually plan it and maximize. One of the other things that has brought this about is higher interest rates. So we're earning more money now on the monies that are not being used currently. Well, that was a momentary blip, and now we're starting to go down again. Without a cash flow statement, we can't make any decisions that go beyond a month or two at best. So if we had that cash flow statement right now, we could be maximizing how we're dealing with the funds that we have available for us to manage. And so that's opportunity cost, and that's what we're missing right now.
And there are,
And then underlying that is the structure of who can move the money and what kinds of checks and balances are still in place.
there are 3 more projected rate decreases by January 1st. So
They're always kind of kept it close to the vest, so she was kind of in trouble. So.
Well, going back
been
5
taking a look.
years,
Yeah, no, I get that.
when the
But
interest rates were zero, there's no
nothing to
great
do
Yeah.
desire to have to
Who
know.
cares?
with that. But
we made less than $100 one year.
Yeah.
so as interest rates increased, we didn't get around to
Kind of
adjusting
Adjusting,
how we're
really, yeah.
looking at that. So it's become important.
So looking for clarification in what was just said there in following our other protocols. To have 2 managers wouldn't be that hard, because the audit and finance is actually a little easier to try and pull together than the full board of managers. So there is flexibility in that to say, you know, I could call an audit and finance committee meeting for 3 days out, have you come in, go over the cash flow, go over the investment vehicles, and then make that decision, then report to the board. I think that would work equally as well. And then you have 2 managers that have signed off on it.
I've thought
That
that
makes
for a while.
sense. Yeah. No, I
Okay.
think that would make a lot of sense.
Okay, does that sound okay?
I mean, in the same way that other items relating to the finances are pushed off to the audit and finance committee to review before it goes to the board. So
Good, takes pressure
Okay.
off me too. Anybody saying you lost money?
You mean you didn't transfer that money and get the extra $12.60?
That was what I have. Mr. Smith, is there anything that I didn't cover? So again, our intent is to come to you in November,
So
authorize
this is
taking comment, distribution, we authorize it exactly.
That's good.
Put the proposed changes to manual in your packet for the November meeting. And notice that you'll be considering acting on those at your December.
Any other questions, comments, or thoughts on the governance
One other
manual?
question, how are we doing with getting a cash flow out of,
I'm sorry.
how are we doing in getting a cash flow statement?
So I need to find somebody else. I went to the gentleman that you contacted, Lewis, and got no response. I don't think we want to work through Bonnie. So I'm gonna see who signed our actual agreement and work
Mark
through that.
Gibbs or somebody like that?
Okay.
So we should reach out to him this month.
Yeah, I would like to get something done as soon as possible.
Or do they have somebody else within that organization that we should be
Yes, so it'd
working
be
with?
somebody else within the Red Path and it would be a separate project. So I think we would have to enter into
Another agreement.
another agreement with them or something to do it. I mean, I'm not anticipating, I'm looking at somebody who was an accountant. I'm not anticipating it being an extremely expensive process, but
No, and it probably would come from somebody in their consulting group as opposed to their audit group or their various other groups. So they probably have a segment that's set up for consulting.
okay.
And it would be closely linked with people who are doing the monthly accounting versus audit.
We've felt a need for this for a while now. The committee has.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. With that, then I would like to move on and just quick go over. And again, this is just a broad skeleton of the planning process. This is not all the different meetings and minutia we'll have in it. Right now, I am setting up project management through Microsoft. They're working with staff Forbes on it to get a full schedule of when we'll engage tax, CAC, our different stakeholder groups when we'll do things. So I'm gonna share this quick and then we'll work backwards. This won't take very long. And got two people on either side of me who can fill in the gaps, so. All right. So our plan actually expires July 11th, 2027. But don't really want to go up against that for a number of reasons. So we are setting a deadline of December of 26, so we have some wiggle room should something come up. If we work back from that, we will now, with that endpoint in mind, and so we would like to notice our intent to update the plan at our November meeting.
November of,
This next November, like next month.
December at the latest, but for November or December
2024.
this year, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Feels like we got a lot of time. We don't. We really don't when we start to think about all that we want to do. So, and actually, I looked at Jen or Lewis. We can start our public input prior to updating the plan or prior to noticing it, but I think I'd rather just notice the plan and then move forward on all the steps we have after that.
So what are you thinking about in terms of public input?
So right
Process.
now, what we have here is just what was done with the last plan. We just put our dates in. So we have not sat down really as a team yet and said, so we've sat down, we've identified audiences that were not targeted before. Give us some input on NGOs. So we will have to have more types of meetings. So last time they did 3 meetings, community, just 3 different geographic areas. We're debating, do we want to have more meetings and with targeted audiences at each of those rather than having geography be the target? So a lot of that is up in the area, and we'll be looking to the board to help us decide, who are the people we haven't heard from, who are the people we need to engage. Um, You know, enough of you have been through other planning processes to realize no matter how much you try, you're still gonna only get 10 to 12% of the populace you're serving showing up and participating in it. But we're gonna try and do as many different audiences and targeted audiences and mailings and different inputs as we can, whether they be online service. One of the things we've had the best success with at reaching new people are pop-up events. So when we did Cycle the Creek last year, if you want to just talk, because I just watched it, sorry, but it was,
Yeah, we had as part of Cycle the Creek, a pop-up activity. It was pop-up party, really was what it was. And so it was in a pretty busy park, which is a Purgatory Creek Recreation Area. A lot of foot traffic, a lot of people coming through. And so people just saw something was going on and they came over. And so we had arts and crafts activities, games. We brought in an ice cream truck. So if they talk to staff, they go over get an ice cream cone. So we had a lot of people who were just like, yeah, what's going on here? And it's fantastic just to interact a lot, especially a lot of families that we wouldn't have otherwise connected with.
exactly. So, we'll look at what other people have done, won't reinvent the wheel where we can, where other people have had success, take advantage of it. So that'll be the stakeholder engagement. And then we'll have our typical players, consultants, developers, city folks, et cetera, et cetera. But what we did think is we would kick it all off with an evening with the watershed type thing. And that's one where we would invite everybody in, decision makers, everybody else, but then do more targeted outreach after that. Of course, we'll also then engage the CAC, the TAC, and the board, and that will be really so all of this is going to be issue identification. What is important out there, what is not being done. But in order to do any of this, that's where the missions, visions, values, and goals become so important. Because one of the things that sometimes it feels like we're trying to do everything. And maybe we need to really focus, we've got 11 goals, and each goal has, it's a lot. And so I think once we have that, and everybody's like, yes, this is what we value, this is the direction we want to go, and here are the things we really want to work on. We can then start targeting all of our outreaches towards that. So that outreach would really go over the course of the next 6 to 8 months. While that's going on concurrently, we'll be doing, depending on what the board decides tonight, we'll be doing we're not calling them UAAs now, so back, what are we calling them? Diagnostic lake studies. So we'll be doing those, which will be encompassing the whole watershed.
So that's a DLS then?
Well, those will be going on concurrently, and those will help formulate our outreach and questions that we asked. So starting September, October of 2025, we'll draft the plan, writing the draft plan.
Are we gonna have some focus on resiliency?
Yes.
Because that's where I see a lot of the partners are really.
And that's what's gonna come out of the mission, vision,
Okay,
values, and
okay.
goals. So if that's what the managers say, that's where we want our folks to be, then that's what it's gonna be. So yeah, so yes, everything on the table right now. So the last plan was brought to you in a relatively finished format. What I'm trying to do is avoid that. I'm trying to get this to be a plan that the managers have said, yes, this is what's important to us. This is the direction we want.
We had a facilitator, like Peggy, what was her last name?
I'll pick it up.
Yeah, she came in and we had posted.
Yeah, sadly,
And we had questions and
she's retired and then, no, the Met Council took over for her and she ran for state office. Anyway, I was gonna actually hit her. So that's an actually important point.
she pushed us to think about things.
Is
really hard.
so we are gonna do this in-house, but I do want to engage facilitators at different steps along the way. And by doing it in-house, that, when we get to that agenda item tonight, that is how we're coming up with the additional funds to do the, what do we call them, DLSs? So it'll come from those. So that's kind of the trade-off there. But yes, we will engage facilitators. Really want to remember her name. Anyway, it'll come to me. So draft plan, September, October of 25. Review it, 60-day review period, November, December 25. Compilation of comments, draft responses throughout January to be brought to the board in February to authorize that. Public hearing then. March of 26, revisions April, May. Board approval to submit that plan to Bowser. Bowser reviews it through September, bring it back with those comments, implement those, and get you all to approve it November 26 or December 26.
Okay, so I have some ideas.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of DEI stuff on let's get more people involved from there. We've got to find a way
So,
of reaching to that sector of our group.
so that's been a big part of our internal discussions.
Yeah,
How
it's
do
a
we
hard
find
one.
those? So I'm gonna reach out to the CAP agency and others that work with those populations and see if they have ideas of how to involve them. Targeted mailings to the areas that the Met Council has already shown as fitting in there. So yes, we've been thinking about that and that'll be part of it.
Okay, so the next one is Met Council's doing the same sort of deal now, planning. And it's been interesting for me to get their emails to see exactly how they're looking for input on their plan. And they don't ask you to read the entire document. They say, if you're interested in this, go to here and then give us some comments. So they make it so that you have a choice to give input on an area that's important to you. And how they have it set up on their website with the emailings that you get, you click on there, I'm going to give you some input. And then there's these great pictures of, oh yeah, I'm interested in, food limitations for people in a, housing area, public housing, or I'm interested in healthcare for seniors or something. So then you can kind of click on that, and then that's where you can add whatever comments you have. And the associated portion that goes with that pops up for you so you can actually read it and make comments on that section of it. So I thought maybe that was a good idea. And then I think another thing is if we decide that we're going to have some sort of a volunteer recognition event next year, which would be great for all those master water stewards. We've had people who've been on the CACL. That's kind of a good area to get some input, because then you've got people who at least know a little bit about what we do and maybe have some ideas, maybe why they're not volunteering as much or love being a volunteer of ours and something's really hitting them as to what's important. So that's my idea. I also found that trying to do some sort of a pop-up at the food shelf was, I think, kind of a great idea for some of the other work I've done. Because there's all kinds of people that show up to the food show. You get everybody from single mothers who are just trying to make it with the kids and seniors who just can't make it on I mean, you get kind of a really diverse population that comes to that. So that's maybe a good idea. Farmers market, another great idea.
So isn't prop just like
Yeah.
a block from here?
And if we need somebody to help us, Dick Ward's still on the board over there, so we could just call Dick. And I know the person that runs that. I've helped them a little bit on their rain garden that's not functioning too well. So happy to help if you need that too.
So Staff Forbes shared something with me yesterday that Browns Creek did where, and I didn't really review it in detail, but really it was utilization of the board.
Basically holding, interviewing. It's, you know, sort of mini focus group kind of concept. So having managers reach out to specific groups, like if you have a contact with something, have a set of questions to ask them. So it's a one-on-one interview process.
Oh, that's
So
a good
like
idea.
lake organizations or
Yeah, it
HOAs?
was, I mean, they, how they did it was they set up all these organizations. I think each manager had anywhere between 5 to 7 groups they would reach out to. How they selected that possibly was based on interest of the manager or connection that the manager already had. Yeah, I thought it was a really great way to connect one-on-one with those groups, but you have a particular set of questions you want to ask, certainly down to dive deeper.
I would do that.
Yes.
I think all of us would
Yep.
probably.
Makes a lot of sense.
We would do that. Not only that, but it kind of connects us to the community that we're working with and working for. So I'm in favor.
I think even beyond that, I think whether it be the CAC members or yourselves, all of us are involved in some other organizations or some other group that maybe isn't related to watershed work, but they are. I mean, a constituent of the watershed.
Or even like Highland Lake, I mean,
Right.
I think we reached out to people that just use that. They didn't have to necessarily even live here, but if they use one of those areas within the district.
And that's actually a great point. We talked about that because we were like, well, okay, District 112, half of it's in Eastern Carver County. But, a lot of people from outside of the district come in and go to District 112.
Like at Lake Ann.
Yeah. Yep.
That's a huge draw.
So yeah, I think it's important to not just confine our outreach to people who reside in the district, people who recreate in the district as well.
So I think it's about 50 different groups of the potential audiences. So we have what you're seeing, what Terry had up is it's much more expanded. We've got everything from the general categories are those connected already with the district, CAT members, back, nonprofit groups. There's different some categories of nonprofit groups, whether it's a charitable organization, a religious group, a lake association, residential, and all the different subcategories of residential, renters, homeowners, lake, non-lake, those who live adjacent to a wetland. So there's a lot of different subcategories in each of these businesses, small businesses, sustainability managers with businesses, developers like service providers. There's a lot of businesses that we can potentially reach out to. Obviously, all the local government, not just cities and the different departments within the cities. We're also talking county, local road authorities, Three Rivers Park District, our adjacent watershed districts or watershed management organizations, state, federal agencies, educators, whether that's even educators in a more K-12 formal environment, informal educators, groups like Campfire Minnesota that do a lot of more informal education on site, non-governmental organizations like Wild One to Prairie Edge. We've got Marilyn on the CAC, who's the chairperson with that. Friends of EP Parks. I mean, so we've got a lot of audiences.
Sure.
Just like,
Covers.
yeah, how do we? That's the discussion that's going on currently is identifying those audiences.
Or even people like in the preserve, because they were so engaged
Yeah,
with what's
absolutely.
happening.
So the homeowner associations that are all around Anderson Lakes Parkway.
Yep.
They use that community center. I've gone there a number of times now to do presentations to HOA groups there.
Field Barn?
Yes,
Yeah,
Yes.
they've
So
offered. for us
that's
to
a
use that.
great, yeah, that's a great place.
Really good relationship with them.
Yeah.
And, yeah, Scott Anderson, who's the manager there, and all, you guys want to do an event anytime.
Yeah.
So,
I just know that the HOAs themselves meet there. And so that would be a good way of getting more of the involvement from that area that's really around.
well, and I'd love to do a
Big
public there.
promo. Yeah.
There's a resource trail right there. You know, the, area of environmental justice is right in
Yep,
there,
yep.
so, yeah.
And that's, two things out of that, that we need to go to where they are. We can't just say,
Right.
come here. If they don't have a vested interest, they're not gonna come there.
Well, and also finding an ambassador. I think
Yeah.
is really important, especially with those underserved
Communities.
audiences, is you go to where they meet them where they are. And then also having an ambassador. So if it comes to the point where, we are able to hire someone from a particular group, especially the mosque that's within the watershed or very close to the we don't want to go there. Like, I don't want to go to the mosque. I don't represent them. They're going to feel as comfortable talking to me as they would someone within their own community. So that'd be an opportunity as well to engage with the community through an ambassador.
The other thing that I think is really going to be important is, I think a lot of people just think, oh, you just write a survey question, but it's really hard to write a neutral, non-leading survey question. So, I mean, that might be another place where we actually bring someone on board to help us craft that language, especially when we talk about audiences that we are not familiar with and we don't have that relationship. So
There's got to be some way for us to try to get the indigenous community involved as well. I mean, if we're sitting right on Frederick Miller Spring, which is pretty historically significant for the Minnewacan Sioux, I mean, we just have not gotten any input, at least as far as I know.
it's a very
Very hard.
it is. And
I'm gonna try.
she's taking,
Good.
I'm doing another tribal state relations training at Shakopee, Minnewacan on November 14th and 15th.
My husband's been connected with that community through bird conservation work.
Oh, good.
So I might be able to use that. And I also live very close to, I live in Shakopee, south of Shakopee.
I know we've been severely inept at trying to reach out to that community and hear what they have to say.
There's some trust issues in place. Are
Yeah.
you gonna try and go?
I am, I'm talking to her about it
Okay,
too.
good.
So, yes. So that's really what I had. I just wanted to just reset, get us all on the same page. We will have a much more detailed plan for you when we ask to actually notice that we're going to go through our plan. We'll be involving you regularly throughout. My plan is to have updates at every meeting of where we're at, and then have you involved in some of the ways we've discussed. So
What about the high schools? If there are any green clubs or people, the younger?
Those are our list of audiences, yeah.
They have the open house day for internships at Minnetonka High School. So if you go, every group known to mankind will be there, from the chess club to people who are so techie they build robots. So it's a great place to.
Identify all those places that you go, whether it's a farmer's market, and
Yeah.
where, so yeah, she's working on that list right now, so.
So when you go to the Marcia, Tom?
Well, it seems like we're here and ready to have our little lunch break or dinner break. And I'd also like to thank Jill for bringing in a little bit of the background history of our watershed district. I sort of feel as if we're all on the precipice of doing some really fantastic things that we've never really had the chance to do. And I'm terribly excited about going over and thinking about what's happening at Spring Valley. And I just feel as if we're ready to take the big giant leap. It's just a matter of all of us recognizing we're all devoting time to something that's just an invaluable thing to the future of our families, the community, our state, other states. It's just a really important thing. We're really lucky that we have the opportunity to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Excited.
One of the things that Dick Ward used to say when he was here was, we're gonna be the best watershed district in the state. I mean, that was his thing, you know, it was like, and we all said, yeah. But I think we've got the expertise on so many levels between staff and engineer and legal and just, I mean, we got a lot of people that are engaged. David's been so engaged with the Minnesota watersheds. It's just fun to hear his reports when I attend some of those meetings. So, yeah, I think it's an exciting time.
I think it is too. I think we're gonna be able to do some really great things. So,
I
We
like
just
one
need
of
to
the-
shake up the regulatory part as far as I'm concerned.
I like one of the comments that Terry made earlier. I think you said something, we can't do it all. We can't be all things to everybody. But I think what everybody's talking about is are finding all these little spikes in the community and finding out where we as a watershed kind of weave into that pattern and play on everybody's strengths and where we sort of act as the facilitator around the things that we have the most knowledge.
Yeah,
So we're
that's good.
part of the weave.
and cool.
That's even what we heard when we met with all of the planners, that we love these ideas. Can you do that for us? Can you be the clearinghouse? Can you be the bridge?
bring us together.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there was a lot of synergy. But we're really lucky right now because our cities are so, well, some of them are green
They're in.
certificate, but they're so into resiliency right now. And so they're really, I mean, I'm trying to reach out to Karen Gallus at county because she wants to talk non-point stuff. And I think everybody's trying to rethink, how do we build resiliency in? So it's just a really neat opportunity we don't have to do it all. I mean, they want to do stuff too.
Figure out
Like
how to
Tom said.
connect the dots. Help connect the dots.
All right, let's take our little dinner break.
Yeah.